Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of Evolve and Execute with Rajiv Bajaj. Today, we have with us Mr. Huan from Kimbocorp. And Huan has been a good friend for a long time, and we have been discussing about how are the benefits of what are the benefits of incorporating a company in Singapore. Juan, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thanks for having me, Rajiv. My name is Huan, and I run this company, Kimbocorp.com. So basically, what we do is that we create corporate structure in Singapore, including crypto companies, funds, and so on, whereby all of these kind of businesses can use Singapore and its global image that most people understand it to be, so to benefit their business. So typically, what they use Singapore for is on a global level. They come here and set up a global entity. They come here and set up an Asian headquarter at least. So they now, they're able to use Singapore as a launchpad for their business.
Great, great, Juan. So, we are unpacking a smart move that global founders are making, like incorporating company in Singapore, why Singapore is such a hotspot for startups and SMEs. Also, I have recently seen a lot of fund houses have started operating from Singapore, and even big corporates are having family offices incorporated from companies in Singapore. And also, it has a strategic, operational, and cultural perspective also, where we have lots of similarities between people from Singapore and India. So, Juan, how do the tax policies, uh, which are business friendly, and the regulations contribute to making Singapore a founder friendly ecosystem?
Um, Singapore government, as you know, they welcome legitimate businesses to domicile here. Doesn't mean that they're going to be here physically, but at least they want them to be here on a corporate level or as a legal entity here. So the government here has built a lot of systems and provided an ecosystem whereby the taxes are fair and transparent and friendly and efficient. So this is comparatively different from other countries whereby they use taxes as a way to fund government coffers. Yeah. So Singapore itself, as you can read the MAS annual report all the time, Singapore does not rely on tax income to fund government spending. So MAS itself is already having a very good income when it comes to generating revenue for the Singapore economy in a way of uh, capital markets arbitrage, fixed income, government bonds, and all these kinds of investment activities. That is the main source of funding Singapore government expenditure. However, taxes completely is a different way to control other forms of spending, such as trying to alleviate asset prices levelizing, trying to uh, put in stamp duty so that they don't want real estate to go up too high, trying to put in GSTs, so that they use all these forms of taxes, right, to be able to regulate the entire economy. So what happens here is that they are, because of their number one forefront of trying to welcome all sorts of businesses, they're always getting a lot of tax exemptions through corporates. So, for example, if new companies here, they get at least a 3-year tax deduction on their first 200,000 of revenue. So whether the business is local owned or foreign owned, all businesses that is newly created here would stand to have a benefit for the first 200,000 in taxable income, which is the profit. Our headline tax rate is 17%. But when you're new businesses for the first 3 years, your tax gets reduced down to 4%, 5%, or 6% for the first 200,000. So this means that corporate tax is not a big burden. This add on to every year whereby the Singapore government will propose a new budget. And these kinds of budget will always be to encourage more businesses from being set up here in Singapore. So this year and also the same last year, they have a 50% reduction in corporate taxes. So our headline tax rate, as mentioned, is 17%. They reduced that down to 8.5. Now 8.5 is everybody, including local and foreigner. So that you cannot get higher than 8.5% when it comes to corporate taxes. Now, this is just on the corporate tax level. Right?
Okay.
So there are also other tax programs that is encouraging Singapore to be very friendly, founder friendly, such as a higher threshold for GST. Many countries around us, they have GST implemented from first dollar of revenue. Here in Singapore, our first dollar of revenue has no GST. They will usually start from the first million of revenue before they consider whether they should register themselves for GST or not. So everything before that is net. If you are 1 million and below in terms of revenue, completely net. If you are 1 million and above, depending on where the business is mainly physically operated, where your services are actually manufactured or where your goods are manufactured, then you consider registering your business for GST. GST right now in Singapore is about 9%, rising to 10% after the election. Right? So that is why it creates a very, very good situation for anybody worldwide, not just Singaporeans, to have their buy and sell businesses or any kind of legitimate activity here so that now they can build net in itself. Then on top of that, because Singapore is such a small area, small country, 600 plus kilometer squares, you have all your government agencies tend to operate together. So nowadays, with all your digital platforms everybody having, these people are able to communicate very fast. If there is a rule, everybody gets to know it and implement it into their system straight away. Right? So this means that you're not dealing with inconsistent processes when it comes to things like license application, things like getting a bank account, clearing funds, paying other people, these suppliers, So getting visas to reside in Singapore. So all that kind of work gets in sync with all your government agencies. So as long as you people like us, service providers, we tend to really trust the system. That's the real difference about what I can say about Singapore and many other countries. We know that if we do this, we will get that. We know that if we do this, there are chances that there will be questions to be asked according to that. We can easily anticipate or preempt what those questions is going to be. So these kinds of preemptions get relayed back to the clients that we'll be working with. Right? So that's why it creates a very, very predictable system, which I think any business would appreciate.
So, Juan, how do we start off? What is, in your view, makes Singapore such a strategic choice for company incorporation?
Let's mention clarity, credibility, and also connectivity. So if you incorporate, you know what you'll be getting. You know that you're in a jurisdiction whereby it is clear and globally respected and recognized from everybody, right? So you know that there is clear transparency when it comes to things like the legal system, the corporate framework, the regulatory framework, the banking framework, and so on. There's very little ambiguity. So very straightforward, very documented, very process orientated. Right? So you don't waste time navigating around these kinds of bureaucracies, as you can call it. Right? So adding that to connectivity, Singapore is an excellent location in itself geographically. So completely plug in to the global financial system and also the premium member of many agencies on a global level, such as FATF, and so on. So we are always looking to be on the real right side of the fence, as you can call it. And not just being on the right side of the fence, but exceeding the expectations of global agencies like FATF, etc. So that's why anybody looking to go regional or global, Singapore is natural. It's naturally going to be a clear launch pad for you.
Perfect, perfect. Juan, you have been a expert in company incorporation, and you are a chartered secretary as well. So, what kind of long-term stability does Singapore provide that makes it ideal for sustainable growth for the Indian companies?
Um, I guess long-term stability will come from many of the answers that I mentioned just now. If your base is very strong, your banking partners are very strong and very safe. If your legal systems is very clear and very transparent, if your arbitrage system, your arbitration system is very, inexpensive and easy to enforce, right? If your AML, any criminal situation is also the same, very easily enforceable, you're not able to use that base to go out to anywhere you want to go out, right? So banking is a real good example. So typically when we work with clients, they will usually have some problems, such as with banking, that they have already grown to accept. But there will be a time come whereby they will start to think that there is a glass cleaner on the other side. This is the glass cleaner on the other side. Any problem related to regulatory, banking, and so usually Singapore is one of those places whereby we will have an answer for you. Then there will be a decision about whether to take that solution on. That's why, I keep telling to my team that you should go out and start talking to anybody, any local businesses as much as you can, because undoubtedly they will always have a problem. And we can even preempt the problem because we've been doing this for so long. Certain industries or certain sectors will have their own problem that they would appreciate there is something better on the other side. We already know what that is. We will use that avenue or use that angle to convince them.
Right. Thank you so much. For any company to take a decision for moving to a country abroad, there are three very important factors: infrastructure, talent, and trust. So, beyond paperwork, what kind of ecosystem does Singapore offer in terms of infrastructure and talent?
Starting with infrastructure outside of paperwork, things like connectivity, right? Internet speed, co-working spaces. You have all your global banking powers here, with excellent geographical location to all your markets, right? You're always neutral or status quo in any conflicts right now, whereby, for example, a tariff situation, right? So
Yeah.
this means that it allows for businesses to build at peace of mind,
Yeah.
knowing that you have all these infrastructure covered for already. Then there's also on the people side, Singapore is outstanding talent. Schools are very, very good, as everybody would know. We have a lot of big community for expert professionals to bring their other experience into us. So in terms of finding right people, even though Singapore is such a small location, there'll be no lack. Right? Um, Add on to things like we have a more diversity when it comes to industries and sectors. We are not just about MNCs or startups or tech sectors and so on. We cover a lot of other business activities, right? Singapore itself is a big trust hub. We have a lot of family offices here wanting to use our very good, stable corporate and ownership laws to create or bring funds in for their family investment funds. Right? Add on to all your other, fund management business, financial advisory business, you're creating a whole new set of different derivatives just from the trust sector alone, which has been with us since decades and decades on, which is not always so widely published, right? So this means that you're always at a proximity to finding somebody able to help you,
Yeah.
right? Because of all these diversity when it comes to different industries.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So many founders, feel that the credibility increases when they are Singapore registered. Even a big Indian company have their family office in, Singapore. So, have you seen this kind of a play out in global partnerships or investor conversations?
I mean, naturally, they know that Singapore itself is trustworthy, well structured, investor ready, and friendly. This is a more of an intangible edge. You know, however, this intangible is important. When you start talking to counterparties in every part of the world, such as in the US, such as in Europe, and so on. So because they naturally know that Singapore has all these intangible assets from the global image, they they feel that their counterparties feel a lot safer to work with Singapore companies. Right? So if you want to say, own a company in Singapore, even here in Singapore, our ownership laws are outstanding. Minority ownership laws, top notch, right? It's very easy to enforce minority ownership rights. One share is as important as 99% of the company, right? So this is why, things like this, we've seen a lot of investors investing into Singapore. They skip a lot of very, very hard due diligence work. They will, of course, due diligence the business and the business model and so on, but they naturally don't need to due diligence the legal structure. They don't
Yeah,
need to due diligence the banking partner. They don't need to due diligence all that, right? They just focus on the business aspect of it, right? So that is why I keep telling people that you are domiciled here, right? People will naturally think that your accounts are clean. You know that you will have filed your return, and you know that whatever statement that you are provided with, there's some form of accuracy to it, right?
yeah.
So things like that, you instantly create all your credibility. You shorten all your M&A cycles and so.
Perfect,
Mm,
perfect.
mm.
Scaling of the business is also one of the intention for any Indian company when they actually decide to go and register in Singapore. So, how does incorporating in Singapore support startups aiming for regional or global expansion?
Well, our laws don't change all the time, right? Even if it does, it will still take time to realize a change in something. This means that anybody who wants long-term stability can expect that there is no drastic changes. They will expect stability, predictability. They would expect that, right?
Yeah,
Our policy directions are always signaled very, very well in advance. And as mentioned, when changes do come, there is a scaled up process to it that ultimately derive in that change. This has happened many, many times over. Web2 technologies, sustainability, any GST increases or tax increases that were going to happen, things like that. It will always be a scaled up process, right? Now you add this on to the currency situation that Singapore has. Singapore dollar is very stable, right? There are monetary reasons why the Singapore dollar is very stable. We do not operate our currency in other countries in the way that they operate. Our currency is calculated by the distribution of the bandwidth of various currencies in the basket. Right? So this is how we control our monetary value. Right? So this also means that if you domicile your company and it's in Singapore dollars, you are able to get non-high volatility just by keeping Singapore dollar, right?
Right, right,
So, so as a founder, I guess you want all these runways, to get very protected. If you're launching a plane, you want that runway in front of you to be very safe, no bumps on the road, long, clear, and all that.
yeah,
This is what it
yeah,
is, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So, what is your advice for the founders who are just starting out? What mindset should they have when they are thinking about where to incorporate their company if they are wanting to play on a global scale?
I mean, they have a lot of choices, right? Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, and so on, the usual suspects, right?
Yeah,
So, I guess the advice that we're going to have is on immediate purpose and also the long-term purpose of why you want to do this business. That will determine one of the reasons why you determine where you domicile this business. So keep advising our clients, don't just look at, wherever it's cheapest, right? So you want a place whereby if you're raising money for your startup, you want a place whereby your investors will trust you. You want a place whereby your investors will also have no additional liability when they invest in your business, such as capital gains tax and so on. Right? You want a place whereby you know that can have anybody being able to sign contracts with you. You want that. You so that's why you need to ask yourself, if where your business is at first. If it really works, then what do you need to scale fast? What kind of counterparties will help you scale fast? And then once you have scaled fast, where would you uh, think about getting additional counterparties to help you exit, or go to another round of series funding and so on, right? So that's why, when you come here to Singapore, you are not here for just 1 year. You are here for extremely long term because our laws are set up for you to operate long term.
right.
We may not be the cheapest, by the way, but it is still one of the best for value places you can get for your business.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, any common myths or mistakes you have seen around setting up in Singapore where people they are not very sure or they have always some questions around that? If you can throw some light on it.
Um, One of the laws for Singapore to set up is that you need a resident director. First question usually when we ask is whether this director will be owning any part of your business. Now, there's a statutory requirement to have somebody local in Singapore to sit on the board of this business, any business that is incorporated here. What? But why is that the case? Why is that this local guy needs to be there? Because this guy is there to handle all your other compliance issues and reporting issues. Tax reporting, compliance reporting, all your filing work, enforcements when there is a criminal situation or suspicion. This local guy is basically the go-to person for any of these agencies to speak to when there is a miscompliance on any aspect. But however, this guy is not going to be owning any part of your business, right?
Yeah,
So you absolutely want this guy to sit there because 100% you're not be able to go and account or speak to any of these government agencies when they come calling, and unfortunately they do come calling, right?
yeah, yeah.
So so that is the first myth that I get, that whether they will own anything in your company. The other thing is coming into here and living here or hiring anybody here. There's no requirement for that, right? You set something up, the first minimum person that you will have in is the resident director, which is usually part of the package that you will be provided with anyway. And then now you don't need to have anything extra, like living here or hiring anybody here. So, you are receiving the benefits of the Singapore jurisdiction just on that one package alone, right?
Right.
So also another myth is that people coming here, they are using Singapore for tax play, right? Just to reduce some taxes here, reduce some taxes there. It is not. That is not the real reason why you are using Singapore to reduce taxes.
Yeah.
The reason why you can have the tax benefits in the first place is because your company that is registered here is viewed as a permanent establishment by the income tax authorities here. Only then can you enjoy all your tax benefits that Singapore would come with. What does that mean? This means that you are using Singapore as a place for major decisions. Because when you are a permanent establishment, you need to make management decisions here. You need to make strategic decisions here. You need to make go-to-market decisions here. You need to sign contracts here. It does not mean that you need to be here physically, but all these activities still needs to take place. Only then can you enjoy the tax benefits that Singapore get. If you're using Singapore as a pass-through for money go to another, then that is not a permanent establishment. And you will not get the tax benefits that Singapore has. Right?
Right.
So this is something that a lot of people do not really understand. By default, we consider all the companies that we set up to be permanent establishment. And because we sit on the board together with this client or the foreign director, we would ensure that they use this company as a strategic by
Yeah.
holding general meetings, by making executive decisions, by, pushing them to use this to sign contracts and all this. They see a lot of reminders from us to continue to use this for this purpose. That
Right.
is our value proposition.
Fantastic, fantastic. So one of the interesting part of our conversation, which we keep, is a rapid fire round, where I'll ask you some quick questions, and with one-liners or all, you can reply to that. So it's first question I have is one word that describes Singapore as a business destination.
Um, it's very strategic. It's not just about low taxes, right?
Uh-huh.
It's about very smart positioning, very long-term thinking, access to regional or global markets. You need to use Singapore as a strategic destination.
Perfect. A regulatory benefit you personally value in registering in Singapore.
Clarity.
Clarity.
Yes.
Perfect.
So you know exactly what it is required of you. From opening a bank account or tax filing or any compliance filing, license application, appointing new stakeholders, you know exactly what is required. There is no ambiguity here, right? That's why I keep telling you need to trust the system because the system works for you. And the system is not a company level system. A system is a government level system that transcends down to what the company should be.
Perfect. Perfect. And a founder's mindset you admire.
Um, I like it. They had to think big. So they need to think globally or
Yeah.
at least regionally. They can execute that locally, not an issue. They can execute it then in their home country, even, which they
Yeah.
should,
Yeah.
but they need to understand that the value of this kind of strategic or, group structure and what are the benefits of forming this particular group structure. Right. So if you are with a global mindset, this is for you. But if you are only operating locally, then maybe you don't need Singapore for this.
Right. One mistake which you see people make when incorporating abroad.
Um, they get apprehensive about trying when we ask for due diligence documents.
Yeah.
Like bank account statements, and so on. And we do ask for
Yeah.
documents like that. The reason why we ask documents like that, and not just us actually, but for most of the counterparties that would be working with the companies such as banking partners and so on, they would
Mhm.
ask a lot more of these kinds of information. So, but why is that the case? Because as mentioned, Singapore is always on the right side of the fence when it comes from a global standpoint. Premium member
Right.
of this worldwide agency, premium member of another worldwide agency. So we want to be our government has always given us the mandate that you need to, perform in that mentality. So if we're going to be always on this side of the fence, then we will keep getting it. We will keep pushing for these kinds of information to allow the country to sit on the right side of the fence.
Okay, perfect. Book or a quote that that guides your views on international business. Any book you want to recommend?
I think quote, if it's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so the quote, you can say that you need to go whereby you are treated the best. This is the place. There could be hiccups along the way, misunderstanding along the way, but it is still the place whereby if you are here, you are always going to be treated well. Right? So that now the founders can then have real peace of mind that they have a real place or a real partner that they can work with for a long term. They don't have to worry that this will go missing, you know, this will stop. Even if even if it does, things go missing, that does stop. There are always a lot of real enforcement plans that can be executed, which is again not so expensive or even very easy to do. So there will always be plan A, plan B, and plan C. But you really need to firstly be there first, enjoy that treatment that you get, and then if there are any problems, trust the process and the system to help you out.
Perfect, perfect. So, Juan, I think a lot of things which we have discussed today, why Singapore is more than just a tax haven, it's a credibility and a scalability hub, how infrastructure, policy, and mindset come together to create a long-term value, and why intentional setup decision lay a groundwork for international culture and the companies can scale. And of course, a lot of avenues for startups to think of incorporating in Singapore. So, if you are a founder thinking globally or think smartly, incorporate in Singapore. And we have one always there to support. Let me tell you, the laws are very friendly and very simple, not so complicated. And I think one the best thing is that you can deal with any currency, international currency, while operating from Singapore. So if you can throw some light on the advantages of that for our viewers. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so just to add a bit more context to banking, um, Singapore is a financial hub. What does that mean? Firstly, it means that we are one big money changer. Right? Many of the company accounts, if not many of the individual accounts as well, it will come with multi-currency companies. Right? And we're talking about 6 to 12 currencies. Most of the major ones, of course, will be there. So if you're going to be receiving in some foreign currency like US dollar and so on, then you tend to check that currency before you actually want to decide whether to convert it. So you are in your own hands now to be able to know or control what you want to convert, when you want to convert, at what rate you want to convert, and so on. There's no automatic conversion, and that is a real way to actually wipe out, do a lot of haircuts on businesses because that creates a lot of fees that you don't know, that you have to no choice but to pay. So if you have access to multi-currency accounts, enjoy it. Deep foreign currencies. Use them as much as you can and then negotiate rates with the banking partner, because if you convert more, you tend to get a better rate. Right? So enjoy that aspect of banking.
Perfect, perfect. I think we had a nice conversation. So thank you for sharing your insights and real world experience with our listeners and to our audience. Remember that the foundation you build matters, a lot. So make yourself future ready. Make it a growth oriented decision when you decide to incorporate globally. And so until then, keep listening to us on Evolve and Execute. Thank you very much, Juan, for your time. Any last word for our audience?
No, thanks for having me. So keep pushing out this platform. Very good. Enjoy what you do, achieve, you know. So yes, all the best to the YouTube channel.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time, Juan. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye bye. Bye for now.